Buying a house will make you broke. Homeownership is glorified in America today. It is the American dream. But is home buying making you broke? You tell me. You ask the majority of Americans what their biggest financial goal is, and it is to buy a home. The problem today is people do not understand the true cost of purchasing a home. Most people look at home ownership and say, buying a home is an investment. Rent only goes up. Renting is throwing money away. Why would I ever want to rent? Homes only go up in value. I don't want to pay my landlord's mortgage. Buying a home can be a wonderful thing, but you have to learn not to make these mistakes. Number one, buying too much house and not running the numbers. Why would you make the biggest financial purchase of your life without understanding the true costs of home ownership? You have closing costs, your down payment, property taxes, home insurance, HOA fees, utilities are going to go up, might have lawn service, pest service, maintenance and repairs. You need to know how these things will change from your current living situation. If you're renting right now, you don't have a lot of these things. If you're buying and moving from a smaller house to a larger house, these are going to go up. People get approved for $500,000 and they go and say, hey, I'm going to buy a $500,000 house. Please do not spend the entire amount in your approved. Mortgage companies do this because guess what? They make more money off of you the more that they loan out. They want you to spend this maximum amount because that is the highest number that they're willing to loan you with your current income and their risk tolerance. If you don't know your total costs, property taxes, insurance, PMI, HOA fees, principal and interest before you go into home buying, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You need to understand what your total principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are going to be of a percentage of your net income. A lot of people go off of base gross income, but why would you go off gross income when you're not receiving your gross income at the end of each month? Typically, it's said 28% of your gross income can go towards PETA. But if your housing is 28% of your gross income and you're paying 30% of taxes between federal and state taxes, that means you're only receiving 70% of your gross income. So if 28% of it is going towards housing, 30% is going towards taxes, that means 40% of your net take-home pay is going towards your housing payment. And that doesn't account for maintenance. That doesn't account for lawn service. That doesn't account for stuff breaking. I'm a fan of going based off net income in the 25 to 30% range. And if you're contributing to your 401k, you can add that number back to your net take-home pay, but remove taxes out of the equation. This allows you room to save, to invest, and to enjoy life, as well as accounting for all the costs of homeownership that are not seen on your monthly payment. Mistake number two, thinking that renting is throwing your money away. People fall for the don't pay for your landlord's mortgage all the time. And they say, why would I go and rent a place for $2,000 a month when I can go buy a home for $2,000 or $2,500 a month? There's a lot of flaws with that logic. Number one, have you ever looked at an amortization schedule? Majority of your money is going towards interest, especially in the first half of the loan. And if you get a 30-year mortgage, you're paying so much in interest. If you have a $450,000 loan at a 7% interest rate, in the first year, you will pay $31,000 towards interest alone and about $4,500 to the principal. That means over 85% of your monthly payments is going towards interest alone. When it comes to owning a house versus renting, guess what? You're responsible if a toilet breaks. You got to call a plumber. You're responsible if a water line breaks. You got to figure out how to stop that, and you got to figure out how to get someone out here to get it fixed. You're also responsible for if your roof starts leaking, you got to pay to fix that, not your landlord. So when you're buying a house, you have to understand that more responsibility comes from home ownership. You can't just call your landlord and say, hey, come fix this. Hey, my oven broke. Come fix this. No, that is your responsibility, your problem, and money coming out of your pockets now. Mistake number three, thinking that homeownership is an investment. A lot of people go into homeownership thinking that this house is only going to go up in value. I'm going to make so much money. My opinion, when you're going into homeownership, go into it thinking, best case scenario, I'm going to break even. Worst case, I'm going to lose money. And I'm okay with that. Investments pay you money. They don't take money out of your pocket. If you have to go replace a new roof for $10,000, that is not paying you money. That is $10,000 coming straight out of your pocket. Yes, appreciation can happen over long periods of time. Yes, we have seen astronomically quick appreciation over the last 3 years because of low interest rates, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen over the next 5 years, next 30 years. We don't know where appreciation is going to be. So don't buy a house because of appreciation. You have to be okay with your home value going down because there's no guarantees. Unless you're house hacking a multifamily property, then please do not look at homeownership as an investment. But guess what? If you do end up making money, when you do sell it 5, 10, 15, 30 years from now, that's a cherry on the top. Mistake number four, not paying off debt before buying a home. A lot of people will start thinking about homeownership when they have car payments, credit card debt, student loans. If you have these things, that means you don't have the habits and infrastructure in your personal finances to manage money properly and take care of yourself. You owe other people money, so why go borrow more money? Figure out your personal finances first before you start bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt into the equation, especially if you have high interest consumer debt. If you have a 2 or 3% car loan, student loans, then maybe I'd be open to that conversation. But I'm a fan of, hey, get out of debt, open up that cash flow, and then start looking at buying a house. Mistake number 5, spending all of your savings on the down payment, closing costs, and moving. If you do this, you won't have any money for an emergency fund. You need to ensure that you're having at least 3 to 6 months emergency fund after you close on a house, do the down payment, and moving expenses. If you don't have this emergency fund, then guess what? When that water line breaks, when the roof goes out, when the AC unit goes out, you're going to be scrambling trying to figure out how to pay for it. I can promise you with homeownership, something will break. It might not be today, but it will be at some point. In the first 14 months of me moving to my house, I had a $3,000 water line break, $3,000 property tax bill. Guess what? Those aren't things I can ignore. I have a friend that spent over $30,000 fixing a leak in his house within 6 months of moving into his house. Things will break, whether it's your roof, whether it's your AC unit, whether it's an oven, whether it's a toilet. And you have to make sure that you have the emergency fund set up to pay for these things. Mistake number 6, not budgeting for maintenance and repairs after you move in. If you have a $500,000 house, you should be saving $5,000 a year into a sinking fund for repairs on the house when the AC unit does go out, when the roof does break, or something else happens. This is an extra line item in your budget. But the worst thing you can do is ignore that maintenance and repairs are going to happen at some point and not be saving for it. This is an extra line item most people do not account for and do not understand when it comes to home ownership. Mistake number 7, not investing after you buy a home. If you buy too much house, then guess what? You're not going to be able to save money for your emergency fund. You're not going to be able to invest money for retirement or for your kids' college funds. You have to prioritize investing and saving even after home ownership. If you buy a home that prohibits you from doing that because the monthly payment is too high, then you've bought too much house. I do not want you to be 50, 60 years old with no retirement and your only asset being your house. Mistake number 8, not accounting for transaction costs when you go to sell your house. A lot of people look at, oh, I have $100,000 worth of equity on my $500,000 house. If I sell that tomorrow, I have $100,000. Well, guess what? You account for 8% closing costs, moving expenses on that house. You're going to be left with $60,000. That's $40,000 in transaction fees for paying for the real estate agents, for you moving out, and other things with the selling process. Mistake number 9, pulling lines of credit or HELOCs on the equity of your home. If you cannot pay for a kitchen renovation, a bathroom renovation, or even a new car with cash, please do not go and get a HELOC, refinance your home to get cash out of your house's equity. That is the worst thing you can do. If you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it. And by getting in this never-ending cycle of borrowing against your home, you'll never have a house paid off, you will always be in debt to the bank, and you'll get yourself in risky situations where the HELOC rate might go from 5% to 10% to 20% if you're on a variable loan. And guess what? You can lose your house if you don't pay that. Another thing to look at rent versus buying is just the cost of a house today versus a few years ago. In 2020, mortgage rates were about 3%. If you bought a $500,000 home with $100,000 down, so your loan was $400,000 at a 3% interest rate in 2020, your principal and interest would be $1,686 per month. This is not accounting for taxes or insurance. But that same loan, $400,000 loan today, at a 7% interest rate would cost you $2,661. That is about $1,000 more a month for the same loan, 3 years difference because of interest rates going up. Let alone that $500,000 house in 2020 is probably worth $600,000 now. That would cost you over $3,327 per month in principal and interest alone. Again, this doesn't account for taxes and insurance. This is why now, especially with high interest rates, you really have to run the numbers on these things. In the majority of cities in America, it is cheaper to rent a place than it is to buy a home. I've looked at houses just to see what they're selling for, and it'll cost you over $5,000 a month for a mortgage on it. You can rent that same place for about $3,200, $3,500. No one can prove to me in that situation that it is cheaper and a better financial decision to buy a home. That being said, if you made it to this point, some of y'all are going to grow in the comments. And before you do that, I am all for buying a home. I bought a house myself with my wife. But what I'm trying to get you to look at is you have to look at the true cost of home ownership before you go and make the biggest financial decision of your life. Home ownership, frankly, has been more expensive to us than we originally thought. And I want to share my learnings and what I've seen as well to help you learn and better educate yourself. Time and time again, people are buying homes that they can't afford. People are buying homes without understanding the true costs of home ownership, and it pushes them further in debt or pushes them in a situation where they can't save, where they can't invest money, or they can't spend money on the things they want to enjoy in life. So before you go and buy a house, make sure you understand the true cost of it. Make sure you understand and get your personal finances in order. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this today, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment below. Prove me wrong about homeownership if you want to have that debate. And I'll see you next time.